You are listening to the Empowered Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monica Froese, a mom of two and your secret weapon to creating a six-figure digital product business. I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women make $100,000 a year. That's right, $100 million towards financial independence for women. As an online business expert, I am teaching you everything I know right here week after week, so you can join us on the journey to $100 million. Sound good? Then let's jump in. Today we have on the show someone who has been inspiring me in the online business space for years. She is truly a force to be reckoned with. She's amazing. She runs two different businesses and she has so much to share on a very, very important topic, launching. I probably could do a whole podcast myself just on launching because I've been launching for 5 years and it is probably one of the most stressful things I do, but it always has the biggest impact and moves the business forward the most and the furthest. And Tasha, she's here today to tell us all about how to have non-stress launches, which I didn't know existed. So I want to bring on Tasha Booth, who is an agency owner, coach, and podcaster. She is the founder and CEO of the Launch Guild, a course launch support and digital marketing implementation agency supporting established coaches and course creators with course and podcast launches. They support operations and systems management and content management and repurposing. Her team has over 20 members, and they all work together to support their clients in being able to focus back onto their zones of genius. Additionally, she mentors virtual support pros, all three things, VAs, OPMs, and PMs, so that's virtual assistants, online business managers, and project managers who are passionate and ready to grow their business while living life on their own term. And she's also the host of the How She Did That podcast, a podcast for virtual assistants, online business managers, and project managers to learn business and tech tips. So as you can see, Tasha is a very busy lady. Her business journey is just so inspiring. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's dive in. Tasha, welcome to the Empowered Business Podcast. I am so excited for this.
Thank you. I'm so excited too. Let's roll. Let's do it.
I know. I think the last time we talked, I was actually looking into your launch services.
I know.
On the internet, I feel like we see a lot of each other, but actually talk. So I'm
this is only the second time. I love it.
I know, right? This is going to be exciting. So I always like to start out by asking everyone what their entrepreneurial journey has been like, how you got started, and what you do today.
Yeah. So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've done it in a lot of different ways in the past. I used to actually own a group fitness and a dance studio for a while. And I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. This round of entrepreneurship I kind of fell into. And what I mean by that is that I wasn't really looking to start a business. I was just looking to make some money kind of side hustling to pay off some student loans and credit card debt. And I had a full-time job at the time. And my business as a virtual assistant kind of grew out of being a blogger and seeing opportunities in blogging spheres of people who were looking for virtual assistants and needed people that were doing the things that I was doing. And it just grew really, really quickly to the point of where I ended up quitting my full-time job 8 months after I started being a VA because I was making more doing my VA stuff part-time than I was in my full-time job. So that's how it started. I was definitely a VA that offered everything in the kitchen sink when I first started, and then quickly realized, number one, that wasn't scalable. And number two, there were things that I was doing that I hated. And I truly believe in building businesses that you love instead of ones that become another job for you. So I first started by being a tech VA and then realized that my clients all were launching all the time and needed all of the things. And then that's how kind of my agency grew out of the need to kind of form a launch support in a box where we had experts in each piece of the launch journey and each piece of what they needed in launches. And that's kind of how the Launch Guild started.
Yeah, because when I met you, you were very much launch focused. And I heard about you from Kate All. Because you used to support her. So
we still do. Yeah.
Do you? Oh,
yeah.
That's amazing. So Kate and I are good friends. And so we always talk about our brains work very differently. I am very strategic and detail oriented. And I think on a different plane than her, but we complement each other well. She was just raving about how amazing. I was like, wait, there are VAs or agencies that like support launches. Like this is a thing. And at the time, I think I had just hired my first full-time employee and I was just so overwhelmed. I'm like, how do I handle? And my mind was just like blown that this is a thing. And it's still a thing. Yeah. Are you the only one that you know of that really focuses on launches as an agency?
There are a few others. I think that we definitely do it in a very unique way. And I think that we were probably one of the first, definitely one of the first that I knew of. There's some others that have popped up, but I still like when I see their process, I think that the Launch Guild's process and how we work as a team is very different.
Okay. So they don't know this yet, but the Launch Guild is not the only thing that you have. And this is where my mind goes like, I just don't understand how you function. It's incredible. So you have the Launch Guild and you support people. I was looking at your website. So you have podcasts that you support, like podcast management, launches. You even do like support the day of a launch. Like you could buy your team support for the day of the launch, like for all the tech glitches and stuff. Is there anything else I'm missing that you do on the Launch Guild?
We do some system setups too. So like we have some people who are either moving systems or need complementary systems like Acuity, Dipsado, those sort of things. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, I'm good at that stuff, but I can see like, especially being a teacher myself, if someone doesn't understand tech, it can be
overwhelming. Yeah.
It can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So your agency side, then how many people work on your agency side?
So I have 25 on my agency side at this point.
What?
I know.
Oh my goodness. Now, are these a mixture of contractors and payroll? Okay.
Yeah. So we have 4 full-time, 1 part-time, and then the other 20 are all contractors.
Okay. So here's the thing. We haven't even gotten to our other side of the business. And this is why it's so incredible to me. How do you manage all of that?
I have an amazing team and I was really, really like, if I'm patting myself on the back, I was really smart about how I built that side of the business. So honestly, I'm out of the agency side, the day-to-day operations, like 95% of it. Wow. So I have, at this point, it's a leadership team. At first, it was mostly my director of operations, Jay LeRae, kind of managing all the people. And then it got to the point where like that was just overwhelming for her. So now we have like her as the director of operations, but we also have a marketing team lead and a project management team lead that, you know, kind of forms the entire leadership team and supports not just our clients, but also our internal team and operations and stuff as well.
That's incredible. Yeah, 95% of it is run without you.
Yeah.
So like in a typical week, how many hours would you say you're dedicating to it?
Oh gosh, not a lot. So we have a 2-hour meeting on Mondays, but that's like a combination of like what's happening on the Launch Guild side, as well as like, let's plan my launches for the other side of my business. So I would say maybe 4 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And now how many clients are you supporting at any given time?
We normally do about 4 to 6 launches a month, and there's overlap. I know. We had one day in June recently where we had 3 clients doing their first webinars at the exact same time. Like they all picked the same time. And so you should have seen our Slack channels are like a thing of beauty. It's like a symphony when stuff like that is happening because like Lindsay, our lead project manager, is floating between Slack channels, making sure everything's okay. And like all of our team are just like on the admin side of it, like making sure inboxes are working. And it's so cool. It's so cool to see.
As someone who has launched I've been launching for at least 5 years at this point. I've had easier launches than others. We did have our first 6-figure launch in April.
Yes.
Wasn't
that fun?
It was. I've been putting off recording the podcast about it. So spoiler alert for anyone listening right now, but I did. And you know what the funny thing was? The whole launch, I thought it was going to be the worst launch. I was so negative about it. I was like, this is going terrible. And then it was our first 6-figure launch. I
love it.
I don't even know.
Amazing.
I know. I don't know how that happens. But I mean, it took like years and years and years to get to that point.
Yeah.
The launches you're supporting on the agency side, like, is there a wide range of how they perform?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a lot of people who come to us for their first launch. And most of the time we're supporting them in a more limited capacity because like, honestly, for a first launch, we can be expensive for people, right? Just because we're doing all of the things. So we're worth the money, but still when you're talking about like not knowing if you're going to get an ROI on your investment, like that could be a lot of money. And then we have people who have launched successfully on their own a few times and are now like, I don't want to do all the things. I really want to like stay in my zone of genius during this and just show up for like my webinars or my lives or whatever. And their launches tend to be the high 6-figure, 7-figure launches because of the fact that they've just been, like you were saying, they've been doing it for years. I think that that's one of the things that people don't realize. Like I just had my first $280,000 launch. What?
Yeah. What?
And like you and I are in a Facebook group together and I talked about it, but I said, I want you guys to know I've been launching for 4 years now. Like this is a culmination of doing it and then refining the process and doing it over and over again, so don't expect this straight out the gate.
You run an agency that specializes in this.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think that's so important because probably a lot of listeners are on the newer side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really easy to look at people that are several steps ahead of you and think that you're doing something wrong or think that like somehow like you miss all the things they did to get there.
Right, exactly. Which is why one of the questions that we ask, especially with our newer launchers, is like, how will you feel if this doesn't perform the way that you expect it to revenue wise, right? And also, what does success look like to you in this launch? Because our success metrics are not just the revenue. It's like, did your engagement increase? Did your email listenership or readership increase? Like, did your community increase? Did you enjoy the launch? What did you learn about your product and your program and your process during the launch? So there's a lot of other metrics, but we want to make sure that like people are in the right mind space to be able to look at more than the bottom line revenue, because that may not be the best metric to look at, especially during your first or second launch.
I agree. I completely agree. Because honestly, I don't think I ever would have got to the 6-figure launch if I gave up in my first.
Oh yeah, launches. Totally.
I mean, looking back, there's just no way, right. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of like my first real launch, I was very pregnant for. And it was like, okay, I just need to get this out the door and what it does, it does. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just like, whatever. Moving on to, well, not really moving on because it's all about launching, but I want to talk about the fact that you have this whole other side of your business.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you don't want to share this, but I am curious, like from a whole company standpoint, how much percentage wise does the agency make up compared to the program side?
Yeah. So I'm an open book, so you can ask me anything. So last year in 2020, we were 75% revenue came from the agency, 25% came from courses and coaching. Okay. And this year we were really intentional about evening that out. So we wanted to do 50-50 on the agency side, 50% on the launch or the Tasha Booth side, as we call the course and coaching side. And actually, the Tasha Booth side is outperforming just a little bit more than the agency this year, which is really interesting to see.
Now, does that mean that the agency like scaled back, or does this mean you were scaling up?
We were scaling up. Yeah, we were scaling up the Tasha Booth side. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the thing that just so fascinates me. So tell me, how many people work on the Tasha Booth side?
So there are about 5 core team members that work on the Tasha Booth side.
Do they cross over to the agency side?
Yeah. Most of them cross over. Yeah.
Tell us what courses and programs you have. Okay. You have a lot.
I have 3.
Okay. It seems like more than that.
I launch them very often. So we have Built to Profit, which is our course for brand new virtual assistants, like new and aspiring. I like to say virtual assistants. All of my stuff is mostly teaching like the business side of being a VA or being a virtual support pro. Then we have the Launch Manager Certification, which is our newest program. And that's a 3-month program to teach people who are already experienced as like VAs, tech VAs, project managers to become certified launch managers and understand like not just how to create a really nice project plan, but also deliverables, optimizing things, those sorts of things. And then we have our 12-month program, which is called Agency Thrive Mind. And that's for those who are building or growing agency model businesses in the online space. So
that's a nice product ladder.
It is a nice little product ladder. We had another program that was kind of like, it was a mid-tier thing, but I felt like it was getting a little muddled in terms of like what the promised transformation was. It was like kind of a choose your own adventure. It just didn't feel like it was serving the purpose that I wanted it to serve for my students and also just in my product ladder in general. So we got rid of that recently and now we have 3. See, that's not bad.
That's not bad. No. Well, I think it's probably because I do see you post a lot about like, oh, my launch,
Yes.
The thing that's a very consistent theme is like the last launch you just had, the $280,000 launch. You're like, I can't believe how easy and how well it flowed.
Yes.
And I was reading that post thinking, what is this magic stuff she's talking about?
Yeah.
My team ends a launch and we need a nap for a month. So please do tell the secrets. Like, what makes it feel so flowy and fun?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is I want people, and I always want to show up in a way that feels really good and authentic to me. And so I look at like, how do I enjoy showing up, you know, in the online space? Like, what do I want to do more of instead of like, oh, I have to do XYZ because so-and-so guru told me that I have to do XYZ, right? So an example of this is like Clubhouse. Everybody was on Clubhouse for a while and I was doing Clubhouse and I got like in 30 days, I got like 5,000 followers on Clubhouse. Like it was, you know, it was amazing. I was building a community there, but was I really enjoying it? Not so much, right? So when we started planning this launch and we were looking at where I was going to be more intentional about showing up and committing to it, we were like, well, maybe I should do Clubhouse. And then I was like, but I don't really want to, you know, like I want to be excited about showing up wherever it is. So I think that that's one of the big things. And I think the other thing is just planning. I am not the world's best planner. As you know, I have adult ADHD. And so I really rely on my team to support me and like planning on the front end so that we're not scrambling on the back end. And I think that that's one of the keys that I see a lot of people making the mistake of. And we even have so many people who fill out our discovery call forms and we ask them now, like, what's your desired launch date? And they'll be like 2 weeks from last Tuesday. Or like, we could do, no, this is not going to happen. So I think it's about like just giving yourself enough time so that you're not scrambling and also giving yourself the space and permission to do it your way.
Now, what is your runway for a launch? Like how much time? Because we give ourselves about 45 days.
Yeah.
Project plan.
Oh, yeah. So we do 8 weeks as our minimum, as our absolute minimum. Now that 8 weeks normally doesn't include when we start like ramping up our opt-ins and our like lead generation and Facebook ads and that sort of thing. So it's probably 12 weeks from the start of that is our goal and desired. But normally 8 weeks is like the minimum.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I guess I guess maybe our stress is coming from a too short of a timeline. Well, thanks.
You're welcome. There you go. That's my tip of the day.
I thought 45 days was like beyond generous, but apparently.
I've just found that, and we recently had a client, even with that 8 weeks, who came back to me and they were like, 8 weeks was not long enough. Like, you're crazy if you think like we could do it. Because when you think about like all the copy that you have to create and the sales pages and the social media and figuring out like the Instagram stories, all the things, like it becomes a really long list. I know that our project plan has well over 200 tasks and then subtasks on top of that. So just getting through them, you know, is crazy.
Okay. SOPs.
Yeah.
This is a huge topic right now for me and my team, because I'm like, if we don't start better documenting things, we're not going to be able to scale. We can't keep hiring. I'm not going to be able to get people to help the people who are getting overwhelmed, because it's like all the knowledge is like living in someone's head.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm assuming a lot of stuff for you guys is template.
Yes.
At this point.
100%. Yes.
When someone works with you on the agency side, do you give them SOPs to be able to do it themselves?
We don't give them all of the SOPs, but we work in their project management platform. So they have like a completed project plan by the end of it. So if they wanted to rinse and repeat and do it themselves, they could, but we're not giving them like, I kind of feel like that's an intellectual property thing in some ways, because it's like all of the things that we have worked literally years on to create systems and processes for, basically.
Like when you tell your team, okay, we're launching this thing.
Yeah.
What's like the first thing you guys do? Like pull in a template into your project management system and start arranging from there?
So the first thing we do is we have about a 90-minute meeting where we make all key decisions. So every single key decision, and that goes for my own launches as well as my client launches. It's funny because my team kind of basically had an intervention with me, because like we're so streamlined and templated for client launches. And they were like, we're just like winging it with yours. Like, no, we're treating you as a client. So now we do everything top to bottom, start to finish, as if I was a client of the Launch Guild. So we start with like, we call it a strategy session, but it's also like, let's make a decision about like when the webinars are going to be, or what even the names of the webinars are going to be. We make all those decisions in that first meeting, so that, and then Lindsay, our project manager, takes that and puts it into our template for the project plan.
That's so smart. I feel like I had a similar call like this with my operations manager yesterday. Like we slotted our dates for the end of August. She actually told me, I think you need to change up the content. I was like, well, but that actually, when you said like showing up in the way that feels good to you, it kind of struck a nerve. I think I do a lot of what I think I should do and not necessarily what I think lights me up. So I'm kind of curious, what was the thing like when you did this last launch? You didn't do Clubhouse, but what was the thing that lit you up?
Yeah. So I usually do twofold. Number one, I have a podcast that I love doing already. And so I usually do like a podcast mini series like right before the launch. And so sometimes it's like every single day I'll do like a 15-minute podcast, episode. Usually it's a teaching topic and then interviewing a past student or something like that. Or it'll be like 4 weeks ahead of time. So that's like that 12 weeks out or that 8 weeks out ahead of time. That'll be like a weekly series, an additional podcast episode that comes out like on a Monday instead of my normal Thursday. And then I like doing Facebook Lives. So I do that as a ramp up, usually as a ramp up for like the sales event. So right before like to get, webinar registrations, that sort of thing as well. And then just regular challenge or webinars are usually what we do during it. But I love showing up live. So I'll do a lot of Instagram stories. I'll do a lot of Facebook Lives. That's how I love showing up.
Now, when you do like webinars and challenges and all of that, I mean, and even for the podcast, are you the one creating all that content?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You are. Okay.
Yeah. So we now have a marketing assistant, Sarah, who I love, and I hope she never leaves my team because she changed my life like overnight. And the thing that I love is that I can be like, okay, we need ideas for talking about agency stuff. And she comes back and brings me 45 ideas. And so it's not starting from a blank piece of paper. It's starting from like, oh, I can use this idea or this question that happens a lot and, create content basically around that.
That's so helpful. Mm-hmm. Why have I never done that? You're giving me so many good ideas. So in a launch then, as the face of the launch, right, is your main responsibility to show up and do the content?
Yes. Yep.
Do you touch emails? Like, do you do anything?
I look at emails and I'll make like small tweaks just to make sure that it sounds like me. But I am out of doing like the copy for emails and stuff at this point. There's a few times because I'm still a procrastinator sometimes. So like there's a few times where I'm like, oh, I didn't approve this email on time and now it's Friday night and everybody's gone. And we're really big about like setting, and holding boundaries for myself and for my team. So I'll like schedule that email because I'm like, I can't blame anybody but myself.
Right. Okay. So you see so many launches, like your team sees so many launches. So there's got to be like, this is what I'll liken it to. When I was teaching Pinterest ads, I was seeing hundreds and hundreds of accounts feed me data. Mm-hmm. And I have this way with data where I'm like computing. And then I like can spit out things that other people can understand. That's like my superpower for some reason.
Love it.
And so it was like, I could see trends that without that data, I never would see. So I have to imagine seeing all these launches. There's like, and I get it changes. You've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years. And we all know the online space changes, things come and go. Like right now, what kind of launches are you seeing that are actually working?
I think that launches that allow people to get to know the person more and in a deeper way are what's working. And what I mean by that are challenges work really, really well right now. Things like summits, anything that gives more than one opportunity for people to get to know you. So I like doing a lot more of those because we've done webinars before and we've tested it. And I know that like for my community, they just need to get to know me a little bit more than like what a webinar can do, like what an hour can do. They need to get to know me over like 3 days of an hour, in each day or something like that. And it's just knowing like what your community needs, I guess, is the big thing. But yeah, that's what I see.
How do you feel about the new wave of paid challenges?
I love it. So I use that for my latest launch, my $280,000 launch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm sometimes a very slow adopter, which is, no, my husband would tell you I'm a very slow adopter. He's like, honey, I don't understand how you run an online business. I'm very confused. And I teach people tech in the program. And he's like, how? And I'm like, but I'm good at it when I'm ready for it.
When you're ready.
So I'm usually like, I watch what's going on in the industry and I don't want to change my processes. That's me, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday when I was talking to Haley, who's our operations manager, I was like, you know what? I think I want to jump on the paid challenge bandwagon. And she was like shocked. She's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do something different. Okay. So now I have questions.
All the questions.
Obviously it worked, right?
Yeah, it worked.
Another launch. How much did you charge and did you have different levels?
Yeah. So our early bird was 27. So they got that until a week out before it, and then it bumped to 47. And then the offer bump was for 77 additional. They could get the recordings, lifetime access to recordings. Plus we did like 3 templates, like agency templates or whatever. And that worked so amazingly well. It was like insane.
I love the fact that you did it because we were talking about pricing structure. We were looking at some other people that were doing paid challenges, and I knew that I want to charge 27. I love the early bird idea though. I'm like, I wrote that down. I'm like, oh, early bird. Yes. Urgency. Yay.
Yeah. Always incentive for doing it sooner rather than later.
I love it. So we were going to do the 2 levels. We were going to do 27 and then 47. And that would get you lifetime access pass, so you could keep the videos.
Right.
But I love the idea instead of just having one level, early bird it, put the countdown on, and then have them just add on lifetime access with an order bump.
Yep.
Genius. And it's so much easier.
It was so easy. It was super easy. Yeah. And like 50% of the people took the order bump.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, that's like the whole point of an order bump, right? It's
right.
And it's like you're already there and you're committing to checking out. So just hit the button.
Yeah, hit the button.
Flip the switch. Do it. So how many people do you get into this challenge?
So we had, I'm looking at my thing over here because I still have all the people up. I think we had 250. We had about 250. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I am like blown away.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And
that was the first time doing a paid challenge?
It was the first time ever. And so we called it a paid, like 2-day with a 3-day option retreat, basically. It was so good. And it was so fun too. And I think even though it's like low dollar amount, it was having people that were committed, and when you pay attention, we hear that all the time. But even when they paid just a little bit, it was like, no, I paid for something. I'm going to be here and show up. And it was such a difference.
That is the biggest thing because I am going to revamp the content because Haley told me I have to. But we ran the challenge twice already this year. And the engagement was off the hook both times. We had like 3,500 people in the group. I mean, we did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
We had 7,000 people on the hot tag, meaning like 7,000 people just like said, I want to be there. 3,500 we got into the group.
Yeah.
But when it came down to the actual doing something.
Right.
And then I'm hearing all these people talk about like, well, at the end of the day, if you want to show up for people, don't you want to show up for people who are serious and want to take the next step with you? And I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah, totally.
So like, I mean, going from like 7,000 people to 250, I would take that in a heartbeat. I mean, because I'm assuming your conversion rate was decent on that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was amazing. So our conversion rate of the 250 was 10%, which is...
I mean, I didn't get that off of the 7,000. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, which is well above industry average, as you know.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I didn't realize it was a paid challenge. And I love how you called it a retreat.
Yeah.
I've heard other people calling it like a boot camp. I don't even feel like it's a challenge.
And I've gotten some pushback in the past from people who are just like, yeah, I get like immediately like challenge, the word challenge overwhelms them. Instead of like expanding, they contract. So I really wanted to give people the opportunity to like come and learn in a supportive environment. Like there's some implementation, but it's not like, and boot camp, especially for women, like even when I was teaching fitness, if I called it a boot camp, people would be like, I can't. But if I was just like, it's a high intensity, interval class, they'd be like, oh, I can do that. I was like, it's the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I love retreat. I'm like taking notes and like, Haley, we have to have a call today. We'll get close to wrapping it up here, but I'm so curious about this because with all your experience in launching, I stumbled upon this is not like a new concept, but it's new to me in the sense of me implementing it. So on Juneteenth, my team was off and I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll manage the inboxes. Now I haven't managed our inboxes in a while. Oh boy. So I'm sitting here and I'm just like in my chair, like waiting for the emails to come through. Let's do this. Oh, we were selling a workshop at the time. And I started getting all these like basically objection emails. And I was like, I don't want to type out responses to all of this. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to record a 5-minute loom to all these. So I did. We had like an $8,000 day that day. And I'm like, Monica should be in the inboxes every day. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm good at this. I'm like, well, no wonder I should be good at this. Right. So it got me thinking about like personal responses, overcoming objections during a launch. Like, how do you guys handle it?
Yeah. So it's different depending on the program. I wish it wasn't different, but it's just the fact that like when the price point is different, like what you can do for it is different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what I do actually, and I used to do this, I can't do it as much anymore, but I do it in a different way. So for Built to Profit, which is the course, I used to record for everybody who signed up for the webinar. I used to record a Bonjoro video saying like, hey, Monica, it's Tasha. I saw your name pop up. I'm so excited. I would love to know what question you want answered on the webinar. Hit me back, reply. Well, when it got to like 800 people, I was like, I can't do that anymore. So now I try to do that for people who have hit the sales page and like shown some sort of interest. So yeah, there's different ways that you can still do that. For Agency ThriveMind, for our last launch, everybody who applied got an individual voicemail from me afterwards. Like, I'd love to answer any questions that you have, that sort of thing. And I really think that the voicemail piece, and you probably experienced this with like the Loom video piece, like people are so shocked when you take the time to say their name, you know, because they're all of a sudden like, you recorded this for me, not for like but for like me, you know, and just even the people who didn't convert this time, they were so grateful. And like, they were like, I can't believe I'm talking to you. And I'm like, I'm just Tasha, you know, like, but it was mind blowing for them. And I think that they see right from the gate, like the way that you're going to treat them all the way through.
And I feel like we're probably similar here. Even when I'm recording these videos, I do not have a get the sale no matter what mentality at all. Like I tell people more often than not to pay me money. So I have this like chill attitude. Like they'll tell me their scenario and I'm like, so this is like what I see wrong with it. This is how I can help. This might not be the best fit, but if you want to go this way, I think it really could be a good fit. And I just like leave it at that. Like, that's like genuinely how I feel, because I have this like strict policy that I don't need money from anyone. Like I'm not chasing anyone for money. Like we don't do that because I feel like that strips my autonomy.
Right. Absolutely.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And so it's funny when you take that approach with people and it's genuine, like it's genuine for me. They're just like, oh my gosh. And I can't believe you're just so honest.
Right. It's so refreshing for them and a little bit jarring when you just show up and you're like, I'm just here to answer your questions and to help you make the right decision for you, you know, instead of like, what can I do to close this sale? You know?
And I guess maybe that attitude of the, I want your money no matter what, is the bros, right?
Yeah,
like that's,
it totally is.
And I just can't, it just doesn't, it reminds me too much of corporate. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Get the deal no matter what. And it's like, what am I selling my firstborn? They probably would have said, yes, you are.
Exactly.
I was like, but I'm not, you know?
But yeah, I'm not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So is there anything else in regards to launching that you feel like people should know before they get themselves down the rabbit hole?
So I think the biggest thing is to make sure that you are showing up consistently for your audience, like well before you ask them for something, right? And we hear that all the time, but like the people that have the best launches are the ones that I see them doing Instagram stories and Facebook Lives when they don't have another launch for another 6 months, you know, when they are just showing up to genuinely serve and support their audiences, and their audiences see that. And so when they are selling something, they're also the ones that don't have the runoff of like, you know, 20% of their email list bouncing because they're, you know, annoyed or whatever. So I think it's just a matter of really being there consistently for your community and your audience when you are selling something and when you're not.
Yeah, I agree. I think the podcast has helped me with that tremendously.
Yeah.
It's consistent. Every week there's a new episode. You get to hear from me. And before, I really built based on, I would tell very personal stories to my email list, which is actually kind of scary looking back. I'm like, I've sent like 50,000 people, like very personal, like emotional stories. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But it built a camaraderie.
Absolutely.
And then one day it dawned on me, I'm like, email's great. We all know email's great. But I'm like, not everyone's opening these emails that I'm pouring my heart out into. And so I feel like this needs to live on somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. My podcast has definitely done the same thing. I'll tell you a quick story. So I do a lot of like very personal emails and everything to my list because, you know, story emails are great. They're supportive and everything. My mom is on my email list. So I tell these story emails and then she's like, so I read that you're not exercising consistently. Like, how are you doing with that? Like, like.
My mom's the same way. Last July, I took this out of Rachel Rogers' book, actually. Remember when, if the internet doesn't know about this, you should. So I think it was last June, she was going for $1 million month.
Yes.
And like 24 hours left. She's like, I feel like she was still like $250,000 away. And she's like, no, we're doing this. And she like phoned it in on, she went, it was just so inspiring to watch. And I was one of the ones that bought in those 24 hours. I'm like, I got to have this. And I'm still in the club. So that was June. So last July, we were like $1,500 away from a $50,000 month. And it wasn't my first $50,000 month or anything, but it was kind of like, you know what? Let's do this. Like, let's play Rachel and send an email and be like, hey, here's something that's on sale. And, you can help support us to, get to this goal. My mom was like, you made $50,000 this month? I'm like, yeah. And it was just so funny. She was just like, who are you? Was that real?
That's hilarious.
I'm like, Mom, I told you we were doing good. She's like, yeah, I didn't know that good.
That good.
I'm like, but I have business expenses and employees, things like that. And she's like, but still. It was funny. It is when moms read your email.
Yep.
Okay. This has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can you tell everyone, what's the best way to connect with you?
So best way to connect with me, I have 2 websites. So thelaunchguild.com, tashabooth.com. On Instagram, I hang out on the Tasha Booth side way more. So that's the Tasha Booth on Instagram. So I'd love to continue conversations, and I'm there all the time.
Yeah. And we'll link to all of that in the show notes, of course. So
awesome.
Thank you again so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Empowered Business Podcast. Let's stay in touch. I just opened a brand new Facebook group for digital product creators. Whether you are new to digital products or an existing digital product creator, our new Facebook group, Digital Product Insiders, is perfect for you. Head on over to monicafroze.com/group to join for free. See you here again next week.